Ros, unfortunately, I am as outraged as absolutely everyone else in Gibraltar. As you're aware, the contractors owe us a duty of care to make sure that once they've received the plans, once they've been told where the cables are, they are absolutely certain that they don't drill through it. So we are now compiling evidence to look to see what action we can take against them directly. As you know, it's not the first time this has happened. And as you know, we have looked to take legal action against another one of the contractors, and that settled only a couple of days ago. So yes, we are looking to take legal action against this contractor.
But do you think giving a contractor a plan and then expecting them to just get on with it provides sufficient safeguards? Because it happens quite frequently.
But the reality is, Ros, that we don't just give them a plan and expect them to get on with it. The reality is that Gibelec gave them plans, went onto the site with them, showed them where the cables are, pointed at them, and then told them not to drill in certain places. So it's not a case of them just letting the contractor go on with it, which is a case to be doubly outraged at the outcome that we've had today. So I completely concur that this is unacceptable and that we do have to go against the contractors to give a strong message that this is completely and utterly unacceptable.
Just tell us exactly who SDE Limited is. What do we know about them? Are they a company that's worked before in Gibraltar? And also the government only announced this data centre a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't yet gone for planning permission. So can you just explain what these works are?
So the information that I have is that the works are boreholes they do in order to test their test plans rather than actual works. So this isn't preparatory works for any project or anything, it's investigatory works rather than anything else, as goes on before any project of this nature. SDE Limited are a Gibraltar company, and they've subcontracted the works, is my understanding, to subcontractors who are experts in this field, who have themselves carried out the works.
Last year, the government said it was investing in resilience, but how resilient is Gibraltar's electricity when you can cut through 3 cables and cause a complete outage throughout Gibraltar?
It's, as I've said, Ros, it's completely and utterly unacceptable, and we are not happy. We're not happy at all with this outcome because, as you know, we're investing a lot in the technology to make sure that the power station itself is resilient. So we have to work on mechanisms to ensure that there are ways and means to go after contractors so that this doesn't happen. Again, it's the second time that it's happened near the power station, and that's why the extent of the problem. So as I've said, we've already contacted our lawyers today to make sure that we go against these contractors to make them liable for the damage.
Well, in April this year, I think it was, GBC interviewed the then Gibelec CEO, who said that the deterrence in law for contractors was insufficient and that a review was needed. And I understand this is being carried out. But why has it taken so long? Because as I said, as you've acknowledged, we've been here many times before.
So actually, what we've done against that contractor is we sat down and we negotiated with that contractor because we were going to take them to court. So a settlement was in place, and we'll be issuing more information on that shortly. Because we have very, very recently settled with that contractor on the damage caused in that instance. This isn't a case of we are sitting down and doing nothing about it. We are looking into the legislation, and we had drafts prepared about it. As you can imagine, it's changes in primary legislation, and therefore it takes a bit of time. But obviously, events like today make sure that process is speeded up.
Well, the government has said, it's been a couple of years now that the government has said that they intend to impose fines. So can you legally impose fines under the current legislation as it stands?
So fines per se, no. As the legislation stands, what it really is, it's an action in negligence. So it's an action in negligence against a contractor for breaching their duty of care. In so much as we give them some plans, they look at the plans, they haven't followed what they should be doing. And therefore we can go after them in an action in negligence. When you're talking about fines, it's a statutory fine on the books to go against it. So the question is it an administrative fine? What is the legal framework that accompanies that? And it's a difficult question.
When the GSLP Liberals came into power in 2011, there was a pledge towards lessening the frequency of power cuts in Gibraltar. And perhaps that has happened. Many will say, however, that they still happen too frequently. So why has it taken so long to get this under control?
So the reality is there are fewer power cuts in Gibraltar today than there were in 2011. I think I've spoken in Parliament about that. But as you say, that's not good enough because there are still power cuts, especially when the power cuts are caused by a third party. We have invested significantly in the power station, in the grid. We have invested significantly in technology. And in fact, Gibraltar's power station is overpowered rather than anything else. Because we are an electricity island, we are unable to draw electricity from anywhere else, and therefore it's a grid that stands by itself. This therefore means that, unfortunately, any incident triggers a power cut in Gibraltar. And it's unfortunate, but because we are that energy island, it does mean that power cuts will occur in this nature. However, what we have to make sure of is that if there is an incident in the grid, that is one thing. If there is an incident in the power station now, as soon as the BESS comes into action, the BESS will make sure that any incident in the power station is picked up and there isn't a power cut because of that. But what we have to make sure that we eradicate completely is incidents such as today, where third-party contractors drill through a cable simply because they didn't follow a plan that was provided to them.
It is something that has happened on several occasions in the past. Businesses have again lost money today. 2 cruise ship liners were in. We've seen shops have had to close. What do you say to them?
As I've said, Ros, I think it's completely and utterly unacceptable. We think that we issue plans to contractors in order to make sure that they have all the information which they need available to them. We take them on site, we issue site clearances, we have the Gibelec staff going on site with them and pointing out where the cables are. So we understand that this is a nuisance to business, that it's not good for business in Gibraltar, and that is the reason that we need to follow this up and take action against these contractors.
The Chief Minister has said in the past there would be no compensation for businesses who have lost money when these power cuts occur. If you do take legal action against these contractors, would you factor something like that in?
What we can do is that we can factor in the damage that it does to the power station, to any costs to the government, so we can factor in the costs that it takes to government and to any government entity. Any third party would then have to take separate action on that. But what we can do is make sure that any damage caused to any government entity is factored into the damages that we claim from the contractor.
And also to the general public, we've been hearing stories that some people have been unable to reach their apartments because their lifts have not been working, people who have been at home sick. People have called GBC actually and said, what's going on? We have no means of communication and we don't know what's happening. What are the contingency plans when something like this happens for particularly vulnerable people?
What we've done, Ros, is that we've tried to put in as much contingency possible around the power station. That's where the BESS comes in, so that when there is a fault in the power station, the BESS picks up. When there is a fault in the grid, then we have tried to strengthen the grid as much as possible. And we're now getting to the remoter areas so that we try and have as few faults in the grid as humanly possible. Again, what we've had today is an incident where a third party has drilled through a cable. What we have to do is make sure that that is cut out completely and that there are sufficient deterrents in place, monetary deterrents as well as anything else. So the contractors really are very, very careful before they start drilling through the hole, so that actually these things do not happen and vulnerable people aren't in fact left incommunicated, as you're telling me has happened today.
Minister, forgive me for saying that we've heard these words before. Are you able to give us any guarantees that going forward that we will see fewer power cuts?
Ros, I think that what we can say is that everything that we are doing, so with the battery energy storage system, with the reinforcements that we're making to the grid, with the actions that we're taking so that we strengthen the legislation that there is currently in place, so that third-party contractors do not just drill through cables. And in fact, through the action that we're taking, through the legal action that we're taking to contractors, so they have to think twice before doing these sorts of things, that there is sufficient safeguards in place so the power cuts don't happen. Can I give you a guarantee that power cuts don't happen? Unfortunately, because it's electricity, there are no safeguards. We saw what happened in Spain recently. But what we can say, what I can say, is that we are doing everything possible to try and minimize the power cuts in Gibraltar, and we will continue to do so. And if what we have to do is take legal action against contractors, we will do that. And if what we have to do is make sure that we have legislation to strengthen our ability to put fines against contractors, we will do that, because the situation that we've had today, I repeat, is unacceptable.